problem. You guys are roast chicken.
Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 best mech games. For this list, we'll be looking at games that let us jump into the seat and pilot giant mechs to save the world from disaster or just wreak havoc. Be sure to let us know of any mech games we missed. Quick shout out to Hawken. Released in 2012, this mech player vs. player game was crazy fun at launch and still has a community playing to this day.
Let's party!
Before we continue, we publish content all week long, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Lost Planet: Extreme Condition. There's something I really like about snow in games. Lost Planet is set in a futuristic world coated in a perpetual whiteout. To keep warm, we have to take out enemies dotted around the map. It's weird, but it makes sense in the story. The game consists of two types of gameplay: on-foot third-person shooter, which is so-so when it comes to depth, but you do get a cool grappling hook, and the mech portion, or the vital suits. These VSs can be used in some parts of the game, but really come into play when you take on bosses. Lost Planet seems to be forgotten in recent days. Maybe Capcom will give us a re-release someday. Mech Assault. When it comes to Mech Assault, you probably have a nostalgia trip of playing some intense mech-on-mech action on the original Xbox. Mech Assault was one of the first games to utilize Xbox Live and had features we still use today like Deathmatch, Team Deathmatch, and even a horde-like mode called Grinder Mode. While Mech Assault doesn't stray far from the typical mech third-person shooter, its innovation on the multiplayer side of things and polish set it as one of the best mech games. Metal Storm. The oldest game on the list, Metal Storm has gained somewhat of a cult following, even getting a modern re-release with a M308 gunner figure and a reproduction NES card. What makes this game so great? Well, it's a classic NES game that has the perfect difficulty balance. Metal Storm is a side-scrolling action platformer with the gimmick being you don't actually control the mech when it comes to platforming. Simply press up or down to control the gravity and your mech will be doing damage on the ground or the ceiling. If you're a collector, Metal Storm is one of those holy grails, though you better be ready to fork over the cash. Zone of the Enders: The Second Runner. What is there to say about Zone of the Enders 2? Let's start off with, it's a mech game directed by Hideo Kojima, so it's pretty bonkers. Zone of the Enders 2 took some of the faults the first game had and ironed it all out. Combat was much faster, with a greater set of abilities and more enemy types. Despite the game not selling well, we could have got a third game in the series as it was very early in the stage of development, but ultimately cancelled. Zone of the Enders 2 also saw two re-releases, with one being the Zone of the Enders HD collection, and the other, Zone of the Enders 2: The Second Runner Mars, which took advantage of the PlayStation VR. Armored Core 2. How could we have a list about mechs and not include a game from the Armored Core series? And what better game to put on the list than Armored Core 2? Not open world, but open level, Armored Core 2 allows players to tackle missions how they wish. When it comes to your mech loadout, you have a bevy of customization options with some caveats. You'll have to watch your weight and power levels. We want this mech to be light on its feet and not bogged down by the biggest arsenal in the world. Really, any Armored Core game could be considered a great mech game, so no matter which you play, you'll be in for a treat. Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Yeah! Now we're bringing out the big guns.
I bet you weren't expecting Xenoblade Chronicles 3 to be on this list, were ya? For people that aren't familiar with the Xenoblade series, they might not know that mechs are a big part of its identity. At first glance, the game looks like an action RPG, and while it's true, mechs are a crucial element nonetheless. While not much changes when it comes to the mech combat, it's still the same gameplay style. Our mechs may not be as prominent as the abundance of foes you face throughout the story, but we still get to bust them out, and man, it's fun. Front Mission 3. The third installment in the amazing tactical mech series, Front Mission 3 took some elements of the first two games and boosted them left to switch up the gameplay. While Front Mission 3 is still a tactical strategy game, it leans heavily on RPG elements. Though it still follows the flow of previous entries, progress through the mission, watch a cutscene, and victory. It's sort of one of those if it's not broke, don't fix it situations. Now only if we can get more Front Mission games. We need them. Steel Battalion. This has to be the most hardcore mech game ever, right? I mean, the game requires a ridiculously huge controller with tons of buttons and switches. Steel Battalion is what a mech simulator would be if giant mechs were real. It took everything to the next level, and not just with the controls. You have to do small things like use wipers to get mud off your mech, and if it's about to blow up, you'll have to eject, as failure to do so will kill your pilot and delete your save. Sadly, the last game we got for Steel Battalion was that Xbox Kinect game, and it was horrible. It would be cool to see Steel Battalion come to a VR headset for total immersion. Someone please make it happen. Into the Breach. How can a little indie mech game be so good? Into the Breach is another strategy mech game. Humanity is attacked by giant monsters, and to save the human race, we have to jump into, what else? Giant robots. Players can control 3 mechs at a time to complete objectives in a set number of turns. While most games in the genre would be won by simply overpowering the enemies, Into the Breach cannot be won that way. True strategy must be displayed here, not brute force. Titanfall 2.
Good luck.
Not only is Titanfall 2 one of the best mech games, it's also one of the best modern shooters. Titanfall 2 took the great gunplay and movement from the first game and added a more impactful story all about the bond between a pilot and his mech.
Wait, did you just call me pilot?
Yes.
Over the years, Titanfall 2 has become a cult classic, mainly due to the curious release date, being released between two juggernauts of the genre with Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Sadly, it seems Titanfall will remain a cult classic, as it seems we'll most likely never get a third entry. Did you enjoy this video? Check out some other clips from MojoPlays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.